Shalom, my name is Avraham Norin from Pninei, and I'd like to speak to you about the truth about the verse an eye for an eye in Parashat Mishpatim, this week's Parsha. Now, many people maybe have heard other things about the verse an eye for an eye. For example, it's quoted in the Christian Bible, and you can see the quote here. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say upon you, do not resist one who is evil. But if someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other one as well. So we have here a verse from the book of Matthew that's strongly implying that the expression, the principle, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, is a not ethical principle or lesser ethical principle, and is being replaced by a new principle that says if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, give your left cheek as well. I want to explore this concept. Is this the truth about an eye for an eye? So let's start with looking at the context of the expression of the verse of the principle. When two or more parties fight, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensures, then the one responsible shall be fined accordingly, as the woman's husband may exact the payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage occurs, the penalty shall be life for life, an eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Let's look at this carefully. We have a case here of a woman being pushed during a fight, a pregnant woman. If a miscarriage happens, so her husband could demand a payment, and if the court agrees to the fine, the court will make the guilty party pay that amount. But if other damage occurs, it says, then the penalty should be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The first principle we see from here is we're dealing with justice. We're dealing with cases justice. If someone's pushing you around, it's not like that we saw that you should give your other cheek to be pushed again, but you're allowed to demand justice. However, when you demand justice, when you're allowed to we see here, you go to the court and say, this happened to me. So they have to give justice, administrate justice in a just manner. And therefore it says eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, meaning do not, just because someone did something wrong, does not mean you're allowed to do everything you can to that man and torture him and take his children, as they did in ancient times. But you could only do the justice you could according to what he did to you, to the one who is hurt. You cannot take more than he did. Otherwise, you are being unfair in the other extreme. Now, why do I say these verses are talking about that? It's very clear if you look carefully. It says here a whole list of examples how exacting you have to be when taking justice. It includes burn for burn and wound for wound. These are examples that have nothing to do with the case above per se. When a man pushes a pregnant woman, there's no burns, there's no wounds from swords. However, this is example. The Torah is just giving a principle here of if damage is done, you have to take that damage and nothing more. Now, how do you extract damage? According to the seemingly literal way to read the verses, is if someone does push a pregnant woman and she loses an eye in the manner, you have to take her eye out. Take her eye was lost, you take the one who pushes her eye, take it out. And if her hand somehow was broken, you have to break the man who pushed her, his hand. this is a way that most people understand the verses. However, you continue reading in the book of Exodus, just a few more verses later, you come to another two cases that illustrate and illuminate what it means an eye for an eye. Because it says over here, when an ox scores a man, we're talking about an ox who's not a tame ox, not known to be violent. If he gores a man or a woman, in parentheses, I have to say, a man or a woman, there's no difference throughout the Torah of when something happens to a man or a woman, there's no difference whatsoever, has the same exact law, because men and women are both made in the image of God. End parentheses. If that ox who was known to be not violent does a violent act, it says the ox shall be stoned, but the owner shall be not punished. He did what he was supposed to do. He did nothing wrong. But if there was an ox that was known to be a goring ox, and the owner, out of negligence, does not watch him, it says very clearly here, if he kills a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner too shall be put to death. But there's one more verse. If ransom is imposed, the owner must pay whatever is imposed to redeem the owner's own life. We see here another principle. An eye for eye is what should happen to the man who pushed that woman. A tooth for tooth is what should happen. That's what he deserves. But that's not how we administrate justice. Justice can be administered also through financial means. And that's a much more ethical approach. Because if a man pushes a woman and she actually lost her eye, it doesn't help that man's eye is taken out. It doesn't help her in life. But if the man pays her a humongous sum of money that will try to give her the same status of life, comfort of life as she had before her eye was taken out, that is some kind of way to some kind of form of attempt to to pay her, to give her back what she was missing. And therefore here too, if a man, even if a man's negligent and does not watch his ox who is goring, and that ox kills someone, so yes, that man should be killed. He was negligent and led to death. However, that wasn't his intention, and therefore the Torah allows his life to be redeemed. Just like if someone takes someone's eye out, that eye can be redeemed. This is the understanding of the verse, an eye for eye, that's talking about financial means to pay back. This is the understanding of the rabbis from the time Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai at the beginning of the millennium until Professor Kasuto of the last century in Hebrew University. This is the way that the verse has been understood in all Jewish sources, including the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the books of laws that of halacha. There is an exception, though. The exception is in the next case that's mentioned in the book of Bamidbar in Numbers. It says if a person on purpose murders another person, it says clearly, no, you may not accept a ransom from the life of the murderer who is guilty of a capital crime. A murderer must be put to death. Why? And I call this not eye for an eye, but an eye, capital I for an eye, because it says here at the end, you shall not defile the land in which you live, in which I, talking about the divine I, the Holy One, blessed be He, I myself abide, for I, Hashem, abide among the Israelite people. These two eyes explain why there is a case where we literally, someone murders someone. The Torah says Hashem cannot dwell among people who let murderers free. Murderers cannot pay off some ransom money and walk around and be able to murder other people. That's not ethical. We do not turn our cheeks to murderers. We do not let them walk around and put other people's lives in danger. That is concerned in our source is unethical, where God cannot dwell in a place that does that. We have to administer justice. We have to protect society. And if you still think the Torah is a book of just justice and doesn't take into account the other side, well, continuing the Torah, you'll see differently. And I'll just bring one verse in the very middle of Parashat Mishpatim that says something different. As an alternative to turning cheeks, you should help people out. And it says here, when you encounter your enemy's ox or donkey wandering, you must take it back. When you see the donkey of your enemy lying under its burden and would refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless help raise it. Even though you don't want to help your enemy, you should help your enemy. The Torah says justice has to be just. You're upset at the enemy. He pushed you. You're allowed to defend yourself. You're allowed to take him to court. You should do that. That's the ethical thing to do. But however, his animal did nothing wrong to you. And if his animal is wandering and hungry, or his animal has this big burden on his back, and unless you put on the back the right way, he's going to suffer, you should help out his animal. And who knows? Maybe if you help your enemy's animal out, the enemy will have a new relationship with you. One of mutual respect, one of shalom. Shabbat shalom to everyone from Avraham, Norin, Pninei. It was a pleasure teaching this lesson. All the best.